Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Between the Lines podcast with Chris and Aiden. Uh, Football done. The NFL season, 2024-2025 season wrapped up with the Eagles taking it all. Chris and I have a lot of other stuff we'd like to talk about with football, but that's going to be saved for further in the offseason because we got a lot of other hot topics going on in sports right now. I'm going to let Chris jump right into it, actually, because he's got a lot to talk about with our New York Yankees and baseball starting up. A lot of news, a lot of headlines for a couple of our big time guys, some good, some bad, but I'm going to let Chris take over and then I'm going to jump in. So go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, now we're in this is the dead part of the NFL offseason right
Yeah.
before the new league year starts in about a month. So not too much that we'll expect to happen. Maybe some franchise tags. T. Higgins probably gonna get the tag. But yeah, focusing on baseball, we're getting into the swing of things fully. We got pitchers and catchers are at spring training, hitters are just getting there the last couple days, getting ready for spring training games in a couple days. It's exciting stuff. MLB offseason is always a really long one, I feel like, because there's not really any deadlines. With the NFL, it's you have the new league year, then free agency, then the draft,
Yeah.
OTAs, mini camp, training camp, preseason, season. Like it's way more structured. Whereas the MLB is as soon as the World Series ends, like you're kind of just waiting around for this time of year. So definitely excited to be starting the 2025 season. See some mixed emotions coming off last year as Yankees fans with everything that went on. It was a crazy year for so many reasons. I feel like winning the pennant wasn't even the biggest thing that happened, which is crazy to think about, you
Yeah.
know, based on how much of an accomplishment that is. Obviously, the elephant in the room, Soto's gone. It's going to be a topic of conversation probably for the rest of time because it was just such a big move. The significance, if you want to call it that, of switching from the Yankees to the Mets, the contract, all that. Like we're never going to hear the end of it. It'll get settled on the baseball field one way or another. Maybe in 20 years we'll be able to look back and see who ended up better off. It'll be interesting to
Yeah.
see, if the Mets have a couple of championships, the Yankees are in a drought, or vice versa, or maybe they both get a couple. But that's all really in the distant future. But as for the near future, got about a month and a half until the season kicks off. I'm excited. I know that,
I am
I feel
too.
like
I'm looking
the
forward to it.
Yankees have been getting kind of disrespected, honestly, through what happened in the
Chris, you cut out there for a second, buddy.
decided to I wanted to jump in.
You
Um,
still there?
I just feel like, can you hear me?
Now I can. You cut out for about like 10 seconds ago. If you want to restart that
Yeah,
comment, you said you got
yeah. No,
excited
my
and that
my
the
phone
Yankees
just
got disrespected.
decided to jump in.
You're
Yeah,
good.
no. So I just feel like the Yankees were a little bit disrespected these last couple
Yeah,
months with
I agree.
I mean, they made the World Series. They had a great year. They had a really good offseason if you think about the players that they brought in after losing Soto, and no one really
Yeah,
wants to give them recognition for that. I think if you look at their pitching staff, it's definitely better than what they had last year, which was already a very good pitching staff. The lineup is certainly hit or miss. I think it has the potential to be really good or a problem. But I think you could say that about every single MLB lineup except for the Dodgers. Like, I see all these hypotheticals that it's like, oh, well, if you take Aaron Judge off the Yankees, that lineup stinks. It's like, all right. I mean, they said that last year. If you took Soto and Judge off the Yankees, that lineup would stink. Like, how are you going to judge a team based on the hypothetical that their best player isn't there? That's like saying,
yep.
like, how
Without
good
Patrick
are,
Mahomes, the Chiefs are bad.
yeah, like, how good are the Dodgers without Otani, Betts, and Freeman? Like, who cares? Like, they're there.
Yeah,
Barring anything crazy happening, they're going to play the whole season.
yeah.
If there's no injuries, hopefully. Um, yeah, my main concerns for the Yankees is obviously third base and Marcus Stroman, which are two things I think could get resolved, at least one of those before the season starts. More likely that Stroman gets moved somewhere because it is just becoming a very awkward situation with him there, and he clearly knows that they're trying to trade him. Like I would take whatever I could get and just move him, and then
Yeah.
Third base feels like it's gonna be a trade deadline problem. They'll play the first half, see what if they can get anything out of DJ LeMahieu, which isn't likely. Um, maybe Peraza or Cabrera,
I
which
say
also isn't
Peraza.
likely, but it feels like it's a trade deadline issue, in my
Mm.
opinion. Reassess in a couple months and see where the market's at.
Yeah. Um, well, Chris, I was gonna ask you about Stanton because what's the news on
Yeah.
him? I mean, I know he's got micro tears in his elbows, and he's talked about the pain, and it's nothing short of extremely painful for him. And he talks about it, he's like, "Hey, I got to deal with this or whatever." But I don't, I know he's been resting for about a month now, but it sounds like they're gonna play him opening day and stuff like that. And I don't know necessarily if that's the best idea, Chris. What do you think?
I actually think it's the opposite. I don't think he's gonna play opening day. Just that was just my read on what they were saying, because if you think about it, like, he hasn't swung a bat in a month. So, let's say he starts swinging in 2 weeks, then he's like a couple weeks behind everyone else
Yes.
in terms of his spring training buildup. Like, he's gonna need some
Yes.
time to get himself adjusted. Unfortunately with Stanton, you can't count on him to play 150 games. There's always going to be an
Right.
injury. This one doesn't really seem like they said he was dealing with it last year in the playoffs, and we didn't really hear about it. It's just it's tennis elbow, like it's soreness.
Yeah,
I don't think anyone's expecting it, hopefully, to be anything that develops into a major injury, but
I'm with
better
you.
safe than sorry.
Well, I was just
It's April, it stinks, but you just got to get him right.
I was gonna say, I mean, if it comes to the point where you get him to hit in the next 2 weeks and he's behind, and it's you're forcing him to hit and he's still injured, at that point, I would honestly just say let him go until he's 100%. Just let him rest, let him rehab, whatever, because it's gonna be so early in the season. We all know, Chris, what can happen in a baseball season and how many games there are and how easily you could catch up or whatever and stuff like that. So is Stanton a massive asset to our lineup? Yes. I mean, he's a real threat wherever he is. I mean, look at what he did in the playoffs. It was probably one of the greatest performances I've ever seen in my lifetime. I know, obviously, the Yankees are the Yankees, but I was born in 2003, dude. I mean, in terms of stuff that I really remember, this was one of the greatest things I've ever seen. Was him just be an absolute unit. So yeah, it would be nice to have him at 100% maybe later on in the season. We don't want to risk any long-term stuff, but I keep seeing all this stuff on social media about, if we lose Stanton for the first half of the year, we have to make a big move. I'm like, what big move is there? Tell me, Chris. Like, is there a big move? I don't see one.
It wouldn't be right now.
Right.
I don't really know what the plan would be if he's not able to go, who you would use as your designated hitter, honestly. They don't really have a lot of depth. I guess my initial thought would be Trent Grisham plays a little more in the outfield. You give Judge some DH days, Dominguez some DH days, something like that. That would be my initial thought. Obviously, the question everyone's gonna bring up is Spencer Jones. Is that a
Yeah.
spot where maybe he can come up and make his debut? I don't know. He had a little bit of an up and down season last year in Double A. The power's not an issue. The contact's not an issue, but swings and miss a lot. He swings and misses a lot. His strikeout percentage has gotten a little better, but it doesn't seem like it's where it needs to be. Um, to face MLB pitching, obviously, the whole thing with baseball is that you kind of have to conquer Double A, because when you get to Triple A, like, it's a lot of older veterans that are going up and down from the MLB. It's not the greatest level of competition, whereas
Mhm.
Double A is a lot of prospects. Look, I mean, Spencer Jones had a really good spring last year. He has that again. I'm sure that could put him into the conversation for maybe being the DH. I think you at least want to see him start in Triple A and then just be there if needed. I would be extremely surprised if he made the team out of spring
Yeah.
training. I don't think that's in the cards, but He's definitely in a position this year where I think we will see him at some point if he stays healthy, whether it's now, in the summer, or in September when the rosters expand. I think we're going to see Spencer Jones this year.
That's gonna be interesting. I feel like we have a lot of young talent in terms of prospects on the roster that we need to see come up at least and just see what we have. I mean, I don't know when that will be. I mean, could that be a more desperation mode thing? Maybe. Maybe it could be if, I mean, God forbid, knock on wood, which I don't think will happen, is if we just have a terrible season and we might as well have some of these guys up just to test them out. But I think you're right, Chris. And another guy, I don't know if this is bold of me to say, but we talk about first base a lot. I mean, Ben Rice is a guy who showed promise
Oh
last
yeah.
year, and
Yeah,
a
yeah,
lot of
yeah.
people a lot of people are, gonna say otherwise or whatever, which I don't care. I think he look. Yeah, how many times are people gonna say, "Oh, like he's not good, he's overrated"? Out like the dude's a prospect, okay? The dude's or like Volpe in his rookie year or whatever. These guys just started. You know what I mean? Like you need a little time to develop, and these people just shut him out real too quickly. Ben Rice showed a lot of promise. I think he's solid. I think he had obviously has a lot to learn. Most people do when they first come into the league. Um, but like Chris mentioned countless podcasts before, a guy like Rizzo was helpful to a veteran, experienced veteran, and now bringing in Paul Goldschmidt is the same thing. That veteran leadership, that mentorship that could help Ben Rice. He's learning from so many great first basemen. So I just think it'll be really helpful, and who knows, maybe we do have a franchise first baseman. But speaking of first baseman, we had today that the Toronto Blue Jays and Vladimir Guerrero could not get an agreement on a new deal. Is that correct, Chris? That's correct, right?
Yeah, he's going to be a free
Yeah.
agent.
Yep. And he came out and said, I believe this was his quote. He said, "I'm here and we didn't get an agreement." He then said, "Now they're going to have to compete with 29 other teams." Now, does that mean that he's leaving Toronto? No. But that opens the door for a lot of opportunities, Chris. And Guerrero's an interesting one because I don't know what you think of him, but he's had on and off years here and there, but he's a slugger. I can't lie when I say that. I think he's a real slugger. So I don't know. He's an interesting. If he goes somewhere else, he'd be interesting. I know Toronto, the Yankees, and the Red Sox are up there in terms of people that believe that will get Guerrero. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I would. I wouldn't mind him. I wouldn't mind him, Chris. I don't know if that's weird to say, but I wouldn't mind Vladdy because he can play third base as well.
Yeah, I mean, Vladdy's a superstar. It would be a
Yeah.
great get. The Yankees haven't had a good first baseman in a really long time. Um, I'm not counting on that. I feel like the Red Sox are more likely. Um, I know the Mets have the money, but
I
they
can't.
said today that yeah, I mean, he's probably going to opt out. Actually, I don't know. He might not opt out. It depends. If he has a bad year, he's going to stay in the contract. But if he has a good year, he'll probably opt out. Um, I don't know if the Mets want to. I read a quote that they don't want to spend that much money and be over the Cohen tax. 'Cause, people say like Steve Cohen has endless money, but like those taxes really just prohibit your ability to operate overall. Like it's not just about the money. You lose a ton of draft picks,
Yep.
international money. Those are all valuable assets. So you really don't want to operate. And I think we saw that, with what they did. They didn't really do that much after signing Soto. Like everyone thought they were going to go crazy, sign everyone. They didn't really do that much. That's why I think they have a lot of questions
Yeah.
going into the year as far as their pitching staff, honestly. But we're not focused on the Mets. We're talking about the Yankees. I want to bring it back to your point about Ben Rice quickly. Ben
Oh
Rice
yeah.
is going to be
Sorry.
on the roster this year for sure.
Yeah.
Whether it's backup catcher, filling the DH role with Stanton out. Um,
First base.
First base for Goldschmidt. He's going to be on this roster. I think he can hit. I think he was pretty unlucky with some of his contact last year, so I'm not really too worried about him. I think he can hit in the major leagues. And yeah, Vladdy. I mean, Soto kind of like ruined the market for all these guys because like I think he was an anomaly, Soto, in the
Yeah.
sense that like the Mets kind of just wanted to put their sack on the table. Excuse me my language, but just kind of show that they could compete with everyone because Soto got way more than what he's really valued at. So like
I love you,
I
Chris.
feel like this is gonna be a situation where like some of these guys go to free agency and they're not getting the deal they're looking for because Soto was like a
Yeah,
one-off thing where I feel
of
like the
course.
value is gonna come back down a little bit for guys like Kyle Tucker and Vladdy. Like I don't think Vladdy's gonna get 600 million, 500 million
Yeah.
like he probably wants.
Now, I'm gonna make a comparison right now, but this isn't exactly a good one because I'm not trying to. I'm not trying to say that Soto isn't an all-star or superstar or anything like that. Like, Chris, remember when Christian Kirk got that massive deal from Jacksonville years ago and
Yeah.
kind of just
Yeah.
entirely blew up the wide receiver market? It's kind of like that. I'm not saying that Soto's equivalent to Christian Kirk because I think he's miles better, but no disrespect to either of those guys. But you know, if Kirk is the bar, right? Every receiver that was, I mean, Chris and I were shocked. There's no doubt about that. Most of us were shocked to see that kind of deal to a receiver who basically hasn't really shown much, right? I mean, he wasn't exactly some top 10 receiver, but then all the top 10 receivers and the receivers that believed that they were better than Kirk said, if he's getting that money, I want double that and all that stuff. And you see Tyreek Hill's deal. You see Justin Jefferson. Now Jamar Chase wants all this money. And yeah, I think that's where it starts is if one player is going to be that egotistical. I'm not saying Christian Kirk was. It's just that kind of contract happened. Jacksonville gave him that money. Fair play to him. But if that one player blows up the market that much, every player is going to say, I'm better than him. That's just how the market works every time. We say the quote unquote market resets. But this is huge, okay? Because contracts are going to be getting close to $1 billion at this point. Then, if the next, whatever Shohei Ohtani, there's going to be no such thing as another Shohei Ohtani, in my opinion. But the next guy like that, right, is going to come in and say, if Juan Soto gets $800 million, I deserve $1 billion. There's no way, that just it doesn't sound right in sports, and I probably am repeating history right here because I guarantee when the first person that got $1 million contract from sports, everybody was like, "This doesn't make sense. This is overpaid. Whatever." It just happens all the time. Sports are becoming massive, and people fail to see that how much time people put and effort people put into sports. Chris and I, our lives are around sports, and it's like these guys are treated like gods. It's so fascinating to me, Chris, because it's like a guy like Soto, I wouldn't say is a top 5 player in the league. I don't know if that's bold of me to say or not. I would say he's maybe top 10, top 12,
He's
but
definitely top 5 in my opinion, in
you
my
think
book.
so?
Yeah. Yeah, he's
Where would you put him then? Like 5?
probably 3. Otani, probably Otani,
Otani?
Judge, Soto, yeah.
Really? I put
I
him
mean,
like
if you wanna
5.
count yeah, I mean, it depends, like
Oh, you're not counting pitchers though.
no, no, you
Yeah,
don't
okay,
really
fair
count
enough.
I
Okay,
can't
fine.
really count
Hitters. Yeah,
pitchers.
yeah, yeah, fine. That's a different market. Well, that's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair then. I would agree with that then. I would agree with that. Um, yeah, okay, fair enough. I don't know. To me, it's like when a guy gets this much money, he blows up the entire thing, and it just everybody's gonna want more. And then now every team's gonna be looking for a Steve Cohen to invest in or something like that, so they could have that kind of money to pay. Otherwise, chicken tenders and fries are gonna become $40 or whatever in every venue.
I also don't think that I think Soto is an anomaly in the sense that I don't think a player of his magnitude is ever gonna hit free agency again. Because if you think about
Yeah.
all the things that have to go into that for that player to hit free agency, you have to come up when you're 19 or 20. You have to decline a multi-hundred-million-dollar extension thinking you'll get more, and then you have to actually hit those expectations. I don't think that's gonna ever I don't think we'll see that happen in our lifetime, to be completely honest. If Shohei Ohtani's not worth $1 billion, no one's worth $1 billion. I know
Yeah.
inflation and all that'll change, maybe 30, 40 years, but I think Ohtani is, the real once in a lifetime player that we're never gonna see anyone this good at both assets of the game. So, like, Soto's not 300, whatever million better than Aaron Judge. It's just an
Yeah.
age thing. Like you typically hit free agency when you're closer to 30 and he was 26 because he came up so early. So I really think it's an anomaly. But yeah, to your point before about the market, it's going to take the teams digging in collectively and not giving in to deal with that artificially reset market from Soto. Because if you
Yep.
start paying, undeserving guys a ton of money, it just makes the owners get mad at each other. Like it just gets so much worse. Like you bring up a good example with Christian Kirk. Like he completely ruined the market for teams trying to retain their wide receivers.
Yep. Um. Yeah. I don't know. Chris, when I see a deal like this happen, it's just like I don't know. It's just weird to me, dude. I feel like athletes. I mean, yeah, like I said, like we watch them all the time, and we treat them like they represent us and stuff like that. But it's just I don't know. There's to me, it's like nobody's worth that amount of money. That plays a sport, and that's so bold of me to say. Everyone's like, well, he's the face of this franchise now, but I don't know. It's just the amount of money that's poured into sports now is so fascinating to me, and it's everybody's doing whatever they possibly can to win, and the Mets are doing straight up the only thing they can do, and that's spend billions of dollars, quite frankly, on players. Um, I think Soto and Lindor's total contract combined for like a bill or something like that. I think Lindor's like 320 or something like that. So yeah, these guys are getting paid $1 billion for two players. You know how crazy that is, that the just the process of that? I mean, it's baseball first, it'll come to NFL, it'll come to NBA eventually. Um, I don't know. I find it more interesting with baseball though, Chris, because like how we just made the example of the wide receiver market. Like there's different markets for different positions, but baseball is two positions. It's pitching and hitting, really. I mean, and fielding, as you could say. So the market just entirely resets for not just the one position, but the entire league. You know what I mean? Like it's everybody under one thing. So every player now that has a better season than Soto or whatever, if I hit 40 homers this year and so did Soto and blah 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 blah, I deserve this kind of contract, and it's gonna happen every single year until we die. I mean, it's how it works in every single sport. Is a guy has a couple great seasons, gets a massive contract, and the next guy comes along, has one or two great seasons, and says, "Well, my seasons were statistically just the same as this guy, so why am I getting paid half the money?" So it just happens every time, though, Chris. So I'm interested to see what happens with Vlad Guerrero, though. I think he'd be a great addition for the Yankees. Um, I just I don't know. I like we talked about. There's a lot of question marks, I guess you could say, with like third base, first base. How do we fill that in the future and stuff like that. So I guess you're right. I guess we'll definitely see how it plays out in the first half of the season for sure before we make any kind of moves or anything like that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the season. I think the Yankees are a lot more complete. And yeah, Chris made a great point. Juan Soto was phenomenal for us, and it's a shame he left. And we've talked about it 1,000 times on this podcast. And he was nice to have. But if you look at our roster, it's true. I mean, it was Aaron Judge and Juan Soto, and we didn't have many others. I mean, had Stanton step up in the playoffs, but we didn't have many others step up. These guys now are more well rounded, in my opinion. And yeah, you're gonna have to rely on Aaron Judge, leadership and stuff like that, and hopefully he kind of cleans it up in the playoffs because he struggled his entire career with that, and that's something that scares me, Chris. I don't know about you. Um, like, how do you feel about Judge's playoff performances so far, just in his
I
career?
mean, I don't know. I think the recency bias is real because the first couple years he was stellar. So I don't really think it's just magnified because it's Aaron Judge. Obviously, it definitely was a little bit of a letdown at certain times this year, but I'm not
Yeah,
really concerned about it going forward. He's the best hitter in the league. Um, he was starting to heat up in the end of the World Series, and unfortunately, they couldn't get it to a game six, so we didn't get to see if he could put the team on his back. Um, yeah, I mean, look, I think it seemed pretty clear to everyone except for the public that Juan Soto didn't want to be a Yankee. That's fine. That's his preference. Aaron Judge said it the other day. when they first off, also before I dive into that, the reporters have to stop asking the Yankees about Soto. It's like I've never seen a team get asked so many questions about a player who's not on their team. It
Yeah,
feels like the New York media has this agenda to push where they want the Mets to be like the darling of New York and this up and coming team. No one cares about the Mets. Let me just preface that. I'm sorry if you're a fan, but they are the smaller team in the big market. They ranked 19th in attendance last year. I saw that today. The Yankees sell out pretty much every single game, 40,000 on a Tuesday night in April that are going to be there. There's no comparison between the 2 franchises.
I
So,
agree.
I think the media has to stop trying to push this narrative because it's annoying. I think it's disrespectful to the players when you could be asking them relevant questions about themselves. Instead, you're
Yep.
asking about some guy who plays in another league. That he's not even in the American League. You're gonna see Juan Soto, like, 4 times a year, and then maybe on the slight chance that both the teams make it to the World Series. Like,
Yep.
he couldn't be more
Hall-
irrelevant to the Yankees, but
Hallelujah, Chris.
Judge said it, like, they asked him, he was like, "Yeah, I wasn't surprised that he left. I think that's where he wanted to be." End of story, case in point. He didn't wanna be here. Thank you for the 1 year, but enjoy your enjoy your time in Queens, and I think we should just focus on us, and they can focus on them, and they're doing a lot of bragging, saying that they have the best lineup in the MLB. Um, they don't have the best lineup in their league, I'll tell you that much, because that's the Dodgers, but, be nice to see if they got a slice of, like, humble pie or something, because with
Yeah.
these cocky teams, it doesn't work out. You saw it with the Lions in the playoffs. It doesn't work out when you're cocky. So, I'm
Hmm.
expecting a very quiet and motivated Yankees team this year.
Yep. I'm excited for it, Chris. Hopefully we'll catch a couple games this season because I don't think
Oh, yeah.
Chris and I, we never been to a game together, which is kind of surprising.
Yeah,
Um,
no.
yeah. We'll talk very quickly about NFL. There's a couple things I want to talk about with the franchise tag and the idea of it, and um, what it means for teams to franchise guys. I mean, the number one name right now, franchise tag opened up today, and all the talk is on T. Higgins. T. Higgins, the wide receiver for the Bengals, um, number two wide receiver at least, and he plays like a number one. Looking for a massive contract. And the talks are already that the Bengals are most likely going to tag him again. Now, strategy wise, is this the smartest idea for the Bengals? Yeah, 100%. I mean, you keep T, you'll most likely try and sign Jamar this offseason, some mega deal that probably makes him the highest paid receiver in the league. Um, and he said Jamar wants a bag, dude. So that's gonna be something that we're gonna have to look out for. Chris, let's see. I'm gonna ask Chris this because Chris is in this he studied this kind of stuff a lot more than me. So maybe he can help me better understand it. Chris, you've definitely seen um the talks about like, oh, the Eagles are paying all their superstars this big money or whatever, and they talk about like how much money like all these Bengals players are get. Like, there's not many compared to the Philadelphia Eagles, and like how they can pay all these guys. So, Chris, how does that work? Like, how can the Bengals? I don't know if you know this exactly, but how can the Bengals keep all these guys?
Well, it's obviously gonna come with sacrifices. The Eagles, I feel like, are not a good example because not every team has Howie Roseman, who's able to find talent in every which way. The reason why the Eagles are so successful is, um, you know, basically their entire defense is on cheap rookie contracts when you think about it. Mitchell, Cooper, Cooper DeJean, that is, Jordan Davis, Kobe Dean, Jalen Carter, Reed Blankenship, so I just listed like 5 or 6 starters on their defense that are on cheap rookie contracts. And
Yep.
then if you go to the offensive side, that's where they spent a lot of money. Obviously Hurts, Saquon, AJ, Devonta, Goddard, most of their offensive line are on, you know, notable contracts. But I guess it's just the way that they've built their roster. Like they found value in guys like Zach Bond on a
Zach
1 year
Bond.
deal.
Yeah.
Um, Sweat is going to be like the number one free agent this year. He was a later pick for them. Milton Williams, I think his name is, the defensive
Yeah.
tackle. He had a
Yep.
couple sacks in the Super Bowl. Um,
And
Avonte
and they have
Maddox,
Davis and
like
Carter, which is absurd.
yeah, so it's just like their
The
ability to
depth.
draft. Yeah, like it's just the way that they've built their team through the draft really that sets
Yeah.
them up to be able to spend in free agency to plug holes because you can't really build a team in free agency. You build a team in the draft and you
Yeah.
supplement through free agency.
I agree.
So for your question of how the Bengals are going to do it, well, I mean, for one, the NFL cap is probably going to go up like $20 million
Yep.
next year, not this year, next year. So that helps. That's the Taylor Swift revenue for you. I know everyone hates to see it, but it's
Oh
it's it's
boy.
it's partially true. It's partially true. Um, they're gonna have to make some sacrifices. I mean, Jermaine Pratt requested a trade. I know that doesn't count for much money, but I don't know. He probably won't be there. They're gonna give Jamar probably 30 million a year, maybe a little. I mean,
Damn.
35 million. T Higgins is gonna be around 30. Trey Hendrickson's gonna be like 25, and then Burrow's on a big deal. That's a big chunk of your cap.
Well, yeah.
It really
All right.
prohibits their flexibility. I think they'll be able to do it, but it's just gonna really limit them in what they can do in the future.
I mean, like you said, Chris, I mean, the Bengals, awful defense. Awful defense. And Zach Taylor has not been the best at drafting. I mean, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase are kind of gimmies. I mean, I guess Zach Taylor's not exactly the guy drafting, but I mean, like, in terms of the coaching and management of that team to find talent, I mean, the guys that are gimmies are gimmies, but, there's been a lot of other talent that they just have missed on. Um, and to your point, Chris, about T. Higgins getting a contract, like, could you imagine paying two wide receivers 30 plus mil a year, bro, or whatever the heck it is? You know how absurd that is to have two guys like that? And yeah, that would solidify that offense for, being one of the best passing offenses in the league for sure for years to come. But there's going to be a lot of question marks. Like Chris just mentioned, if you spend all your money on these guys, what's that quote? It's like put all your eggs in one basket kind of thing. It's not going to go well. I mean, obviously the Bengals threw it a lot this season, but they were still so efficient. Joe Burrow had a great year. Jamar Chase great year. T. Higgins great year, even though he missed a couple games. Um, so yeah, they pass a lot more, but they're great at passing. But it doesn't do anything for you. It doesn't matter because they had zero defense. I think there were 3 or 4 times this year where they put up 30 plus points and still lost. Like that's bad. That's really, really bad to be one of the most efficient offenses in the league, just to not even make the playoffs. So there's gonna be a lot of question marks because T. Higgins could definitely go to one of these teams with a smaller, um, with not smaller, sorry, with a younger quarterback, like more of a new guy that needs a wide receiver one. There's Bo Nix for the Broncos, there's Drake May for the Patriots, and he could get a bag, dude. He could get a lot of money to be the number one there. Now, for his career, I would stay with the Bengals. I really think that the Bengals could put together something really special in the next couple of years. That is if they get some defensive pieces, but I find the franchise tag interesting, Chris, because of all the drama that surrounds it every year. There's always one player, like every offseason, that we're like, oh, he's gonna get the tag, and then we find out he gets a tag, and he sits out because he's like, this is not the money I want, or whatever. Who have we seen? We've seen Le'Veon Bell,
Ezekiel
Barkley,
Elliott
yeah, Elliott. Barkley had talks
is
last year. The year before that, he was frustrated. Like, just guys that were frustrated about the franchise tag, and it's just like I don't know. I mean, I guess it is a good thing to have in the league. It's just, with players having such big egos and, wanting that money now, is it more of a problem, Chris, than rather like a solution?
I mean, I don't really know why the players are so opposed to the franchise tag. It's a significant raise
Yeah.
from what they're making. Obviously, the whole argument is if you get hurt on the franchise tag, then it affects your long-term potential for earnings, but it's still a significant raise from what you've been earning for the most part. And for a guy like Higgins, when you get tagged again, I'm pretty sure it already increases based on that salary. So, I mean, like, I don't really feel too sorry for guys complaining about getting $30 million a year. That's just my perspective on it. I think it buys the team a chance to try to work out a deal because, the players are tough to deal with. They all want to be the highest
Yep,
paid at the position, and they all hold out in training camp, and they don't care that they miss practice. And it happens every year, right?
yep,
So, but yeah, I think they're going to tag T. Higgins. I don't see any way that they let him walk. I think he's better off staying in Cincinnati because he can't stay
yeah,
healthy. So, whatever team signs him, if they're going to sign him to be a one, you're getting like 10 games of T. Higgins because he literally never stays healthy.
yep.
So I think
Good
it's
point.
better for everyone involved if he stays there.
Oh, oh no! I got an alert on my phone. The Steelers are front runners to sign QB Daniel Jones.
Yeah.
Oh my god. The Steelers believe QB Daniel Jones can be a fit in Arthur Smith's offense. For football forever. Oh my god. That's brutal, dude.
I mean, the
I don't know.
Steelers desperately need to rebuild, but they refuse to rebuild. That's
Yeah,
their problem.
yeah, yeah. I don't
They
know.
they they never pick in the top 10, so they can't get a quarterback. Um, they haven't built out an elite roster. Daniel Jones would just be trying to throw a Band-Aid on it again.
Yeah,
That's what they did with Russell Wilson and Justin Fields and pretty much every quarterback they've had since Ben Roethlisberger retired.
yeah. There's a lot of talks right now. This stirring up. I'm kind of shocked to see this. There's a lot of
Yeah, I mean,
rumors
we
going
we've seen
around.
a lot going around now before free agency in about a month. I know we've been seeing a lot of smoke about Justin Fields and the Jets. I think
Yep.
I had mentioned
That's
that a
huge,
couple
Chris.
weeks
I
ago.
want you to talk about that though. Go ahead.
I mean, I don't really think that this is the year I want to draft the quarterback because Cam Ward's not going to be there, and I'm not a Shador guy. And then the other guys I wouldn't want to draft in the first round, honestly. So, from my perspective, it kind of reminds me of like a Darnold situation. You take a flyer on
Mm,
a guy, and if he's good, then you make the playoffs like the Vikings. If not, it's only a 1 year deal. So I would be fine with Justin Fields, a quarterback room of like Justin Fields, Tyrod Taylor, maybe like a fourth round pick, and just battle it out. That's my thinking. And then you take the swing for quarterback next year because the Jets have so many holes that like I'd rather spend a top 10 pick on a real difference
mm,
maker rather than throw a dart at like sorry, I said that last week. I made a stupid pun. Throw a dart at like Jackson Dart or someone like
yeah,
that where it's like I don't think the value is there in the first round. Not that Jackson Dart can't be a good player, but
I
like
agree.
I wouldn't want to spend the seventh pick on him.
I agree, Chris. I think that's the power of quarterbacks though in this league is when more teams become QB needy, or like towards the draft. A lot of these second, third round pick quarterbacks become first round values. Not even first round, top 10 pick values. Like Chris just mentioned, Jackson Dart was definitely projected to go second, third round. And not to discredit him in any way, it's how he was valued at the time. And a lot more teams became a lot more needy for a quarterback, and they were like, you got to fight for that. People, of course, any team would have prayed to see him fall to the second round, and then they would have stolen him. So that becomes the game of who's going to take him, who's going to trade up for him, whatever. And yeah, Jackson Dart, probably the third best quarterback in this draft. He's behind Shador and Cam Ward. So there's going to be a couple teams fighting for these guys now. And yeah, I mean, Jalen Milrow probably went up a couple rounds as well, maybe, just for the value of a quarterback, and what he like the potential of being the guy. I mean, how much, um, um, what's it called? Pushback did Roseman get for drafting Hurts? What was it? Hurts in like the second round or something like that. I mean,
Yeah.
Hurts was not a first round guy. The Eagles had Carson Wentz. Everybody was confused. Everyone was like, "Well, we just came off of we beat Tom Brady. We're fine. We can always go back and look at Jalen. He just won them their own ring, bro. I mean, he has an incredible story. So you don't know what's going to happen now, and how who's going to shoot up the draft boards. There's a
Well,
lot
think
of.
about last.
Go ahead.
Sorry, keep going. No, you
No,
keep going.
I was about to change the subject. I was about to change the subject. Go.
I was just gonna say, think about even last year. I don't think anyone thought that Nix was a first round pick, and then on
Uh,
draft night, the Broncos got a lot of heat for it,
mm,
and they were completely right. So
and Michael Penix.
yeah, I mean Penix. I still think Penix was a bad pick there, just because
Interesting.
Kirk didn't turn out to be so good, but I didn't
I don't know.
think
Penix
Penix
shows
was worth.
promise.
Not that he can't be good. I think we need to see a lot more. I just think top 10 wasn't a great spot for him. But, and then obviously JJ McCarthy, we don't know because he didn't play. But so there's a lot to be seen with some of these guys.
Hmm. Wait, so you thought Bo Nix was good though, but did you think Bo Nix was good after they drafted him so high?
No, I didn't think Bo Nix or Penix should have been drafted there.
Yeah.
Bo Nix, I think Bo Nix is more justifiable because of the situation where you have a really good head coach in Sean Payton and you respect his opinion on quarterbacks. If he was pounding the table for Bo Nix, obviously these guys know a lot more than we do.
Yeah.
But if he was pounding the table for Bo Nix and he said, "This is my guy, like I can make it work with him, I can get the most out of him," then you believe him and you go with him. And I just think that team was a little bit better set up to take in a rookie quarterback and kind of deal with some of the growing pains, which they dealt with and then flourished and made the playoffs. Whereas like with the
Yeah.
Falcons, you just signed Kirk to a 4-year monster contract,
Yeah.
over 100 million. And then everyone's expecting that you're in win now mode with the seventh pick to draft, Brock Bowers, offensive lineman, Roma Dunze, maybe someone on defense, something like that to, you know, um, just to add a little bit to the
Just the
team.
boost, the boost the team.
Yeah, and then you spend that pick on Penix, and you're like, well, we just signed Kirk to a 4-year deal, so like Penix isn't going to play for 4 years or so. Obviously he played this year because Kirk was so underwhelming, but and then you're bringing him in a playoff race and trying to I don't know. I just felt like a messy situation. Hopefully this offseason, since it's like he's the clear cut guy, they're getting rid of Kirk, like he's able to develop a little bit because I think he can be good too. I just didn't think the situation was great in Atlanta.
Yeah, I agree with you. I entirely agree with you. I mean, Chris and I have actually talked about Penix a lot. I mean, he's got a beautiful throw, dude. He's got pieces around him. So Atlanta has built a solid offense. It's just I agree with you, Chris. I think it was definitely weird to see that night. I mean, that was definitely the most one of, if not the most shocking picks of that first round, considering Bo Nix went. Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. I'm very excited for draft time because dude, we don't know what's gonna happen, and we think we do. But Chris and I are gonna probably make a mock draft or two. We should probably do that actually for next podcast. That'd be pretty fun. Um, yeah, I mean, Chris, we got anything else to talk about though? I'm trying to think. Hmm.
Yeah, I mean nothing. It's tough with the NFL draft, at least, especially before the combine. I think the combine and the pro days this year are actually going to have a lot of value. I know they
Yeah,
do to the teams that actually go there and watch, but from the media and the fans' perspective, like we need to see some more of these guys because there isn't a lot of clear cut blue chip prospects where you're like, this guy's going to be a Hall of Famer, this guy's going to be an All Pro. Like I think everyone
yeah.
knew that like Brock Bowers was going to be an All Pro tight end coming out of college. But, like we don't really have that this year, other than Abdul Carter maybe,
Abdul Carter,
and
maybe.
Travis Hunter is like tough to project because you don't know how he's going to translate to the NFL because he's not really elite at either position. So he's
He's
going to be
just
an
a
interesting
baller.
one to watch. Yeah, no, he's just a great football player, but I don't know how that's going to work in the NFL.
No, I agree with you. I agree. That's one of the more. I mean, Chris, in our lifetime, I mean, they had Deion Sanders before we were born, but this is one of the most interesting prospects. Just look at is Travis Hunter because it's like Chris and I kind of dissected him before, where we're like, he's a pretty good corner, he's a pretty good receiver, he's good on both sides of the ball, but he's good, And I think what the problem was is he stuck to doing both instead of committing to one, which led to him kind of like I don't know. I guess my point trying to be is like if he played one or the other, he would have been elite at them, or he could have had the potential to be elite at it in college. which would have definitely made him a clear cut top five, top three pick because his athleticism alone is just unreal, dude. I mean, he's one of the best overall prospects I've seen. It's just a matter of him wanting to play receiver and corners tough. I mean, if I'm a team in that top five and I want to draft him, the best way I look at it is have him at corner and have maybe a couple design plays for him at receiver because I don't know. I think he can do it all. So I don't know. He's a very interesting player to look out for. I'm very curious as who drafts him. Um, so the QB situation is an entirely different thing. We have that conversation every year. Yeah, Chris is right. I think when we see combine and pro days happen, a lot of stuff changes. A lot of stuff changes. I remember, who I mean, I guess Mitch Trubisky was shocking too. I mean, he had a solid pro day and combine. Zach Wilson, I know Chris. I don't want to bring him up, but he was pretty solid in his combine and pro day, and the Jets took him second overall. It wasn't a surprise, but it's just that kind of thing of like, who does well and raises their draft stock. So, like Chris said, we're looking forward to seeing who separates from the rest of the herd. Kind of, like does Tyler Warren prove that he's the best tight end in this draft? Does Shador or Cam or even Jackson Dart prove that they can be a top five, top three pick and be a franchise quarterback? Is Abdul Carter really a game wrecker? So these are the questions we're going to get answered when we see the combine. And Chris and I will probably go over that, which would be pretty interesting to see. Um, I wish we could go there. That'd be so fun to go to the combine.
Go to
Um,
Indianapolis.
oh, fun that would be. Do a live recording or something.
I think is for any prospect who has the most to gain at the combine and pro days, it's Jackson Dart because he could
Mm,
lock in his status. He's going in the first round.
yes,
There's
I
no
agree with
doubt
you.
about it in my mind. But he could lock himself in as a top 10 pick with a really good combine and a pro day. So I
Yeah.
don't think he makes it out of the top 10, honestly, when we get there. I think his stock is just going to keep going up and up and up.
Yep.
Um, and people get desperate for quarterbacks. That's how it goes. We saw Daniel Jones go sixth. That was a
Yep.
reach. We
That was
saw
brutal.
Penix, McCarthy, and Nix. Like I think everyone agreed that was a little high. Um,
Yeah.
for where they went. Mitch Trubisky. Obviously, that was a really, really bad pick by the
Chicago.
Bears, especially when you know that Mahomes was there. Even Deshaun Watson, like before all the stuff, like Deshaun Watson was
Brett.
a super. He was a superstar,
Yeah.
like
He's a stud.
coming out of Clemson. Like I don't know how he made it that far in the draft,
Yeah.
but I mean we see it every year. The combine has such a serious impact on the quarterbacks mostly. You know that's
Yeah.
that's that's where we get a lot of information about some of these guys. 'Cause it's a
Yeah.
level playing field. You're just measuring everyone's traits in the same conditions.
Yeah. I agree with you, Chris. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. Um, Last thing I want to say, going quickly back to baseball. I'm gonna make my hot take. I know this is crazy. I'm calling a rematch in the World Series. I'm calling Yankees Dodgers rematch. I don't think the Mets do anything. I don't care what you all say. I'm saying Yankees Dodgers rematch. I don't know who wins. On that I can't decide that yet. Chris, if you want to make a prediction, go for it. But I'm putting it out there right now. I'm calling the rematch this year.
Yeah, I don't think it's that far fetched to say that it's going to be a rematch. When you look at the American League, the Red Sox have actually made some really good moves. They're going to be in the playoffs next year, in my opinion, or this year. But there's not that many good teams in the American League. Like, I think it's the Yankees to lose as the reigning AL champs, and then no one's stopping the Dodgers. They're going to win the World Series. They're better than they were last year. They're way better than they were last year. They added
Just insane.
Sasaki. Otani's going to pitch another year for Yamamoto. They added Snell. They kept like all their important players for that lineup. It's
It's
insane.
not
It's right.
fair. Not fair.
But I mean, they still
Um,
have to go out and do it. I mean, the Yankees were very
you're
close
right.
to being on the opposite end of that World Series. So we'll
Yep.
see. It's a long season too.
We shall see. We got a long season ahead of us for baseball. A lot of stuff to talk about in terms of the off season for the NFL. We appreciate everybody listening to us as always. Chris and I have a 10-minute shorter than normal. We didn't do the full hour, but we're kind of in that dead zone that Chris kind of mentioned earlier. But it's okay. We're gonna try and come up with more creative topics for the future episodes. But we just appreciate everybody for listening, and take care.